There's this competition between Jordan and Scalise, you know, between the guy who covered up a sex scandal and the guy who is David Duke without the baggage. There is some speculation that the Republicans will just say, screw it, let's go back with Kevin McCarthy. We'll see. And, you know, there's some small possibility that the Democrats will ride to the rescue. So, you know, keep your eye on all these things. We'll see how all this shakes out. Why Trump and the GOP are burning the entire system down is the headline of the article I wrote over at HartmannReport.com today. And, you know, what I'm pointing out is that what we're seeing, and I think that, you know, even the dysfunction that I was just discussing in the House of Representatives is symptomatic of this, or arguably even causal, is that there are three factions in the United States who want to destroy the American government. They want to replace our government with basically nothing, with you know, giant corporations and billionaires. You know, all government functions that have to do with helping people out. You know, welfare programs, food programs, education, scholarships, all that. They want to replace all that with private philanthropy so that we all have to go hat in hand begging billionaires for things. Basically, they're trying to recreate the world that Charles Dickens documented. I mean, that's really what we're talking about here. So you've got the right-wing billionaires who are trying to do that. And then you've got the MAGA people who are trying to tear down American democracy. You know, the right-wing billionaires are, you know, they're sort of okay with democracy as long as they can buy it. You know, now that you've got Citizens United, they're quite happy with that. But, you know, then you've got the MAGA people who want to basically have a dictatorship in the United States. They want Donald Trump to be, you know, the one and only, the king of America, you know, until the day he dies. And then, you know, replace him with some other king of America. So that's the second group. And then the third group are the people who are overtly dancing to the tune of Vladimir Putin and Russia and other autocratic regimes around the world. And that group, excuse me, and that group is, you know, very much out there promoting the idea that we should stop aiding Ukraine, that, you know, well, in fact, Josh Hawley, the traitor from Missouri, the guy who gave the fist bump, the fist in the air to the January 6th insurrectionists. Josh Hawley just tweeted that we should take all our aid to Ukraine and give it to Israel instead. Cut off Ukraine. Just hand them to Russia. Right? So, you know, you've got the Putin caucus in the Senate and in the House. And, you know, this is what they're all about. So you got these three groups that want to tear down the country. Steve Bannon talked about this when he was an advisor, a Trump advisor in the White House in 2017. He said that he wanted to deconstruct the administrative state. He said that's all going to be deconstructed. And I think that's why this regulatory thing is so important, that, you know, tear down the regulatory agencies. The fossil fuel billionaires don't want the EPA around anymore. The construction billionaires, you know, like the guy who basically bought Clarence Thomas. They don't want regulations of real estate and the housing industry. I mean, this just goes on and on. It's all over the place. Pardon me. And I would say I'm having an allergy problem, but I don't think that's the time of year for it. I don't know why my nose is running. Anyway, in this, the GOP, Putin, and the fossil fuel billionaires are all, you know, working toward the same goal. And one of their favorite memes is that democracy is not natural. If you look at the history of the human race, you see that it's always been, you know, strongman autocrats and that kind of thing. And there is some truth to that. But if you look, I wrote about this in The Hidden History of American Democracy, if you look at other animal species, what you find from gnats to fish to geese to red deer, what you find is that they make decisions using a democratic process, small d democratic process. So now we're seeing this played out in the United States. Do we have a social democracy kind of government like you have in the blue states? Or do you have a, you know, 1890s British-style government, you know, like Dickens wrote about, which we see in the red states? And this is why in the red states, in the fully GOP-controlled red states, low-income working people don't have access to Medicaid. Public education is under attack with voucher programs. Women can't get an abortion. There are a few scholarship programs for higher education, so everybody goes in debt if they want to go to college. Districts are so gerrymandered that voting is largely symbolic. Union rights are non-existent. Guns have more protections than children. Meanwhile, in blue states, and that red state model is what the Republican Party wants for all of America. Meanwhile, in the blue states, women live as much as 2 years longer, so do men, by the way, about that. Overall life expectancy is as high as in Denmark, whereas in the red states is as low as Serbia. Cancer rates are lower. The cancer rate in California is 358 per 100,000 people. In Kentucky, it's 504 per 100,000. Heart disease can be as much as 5 times lower in blue states than in red states. Children are less likely to die from gunfire in blue states. A child in Massachusetts is 1/10 as likely to die by gunfire as in Mississippi. People have measurably higher levels of primary school graduation and achievement. The vast majority of people are fully insured for health care. Babies and new mothers are less likely to die than in red states. Food insecurity is rare compared to red states. Obesity and chronic disease rates are much lower than in red states, and rates of hypertension are lower in blue states than in red states. I mean, the list goes on and on. You can Google just about any, measurable index of quality of life, and you'll find that blue states are beating red states. The one exception is taxation and cost of living, where red states beat blue states. But, hey, if you want to live on the cheap, then you end up with all these consequences that I just laid out. And now this war against American institutions is going full bore. I mean, the Republicans are talking about putting a guy who, according to the January 6th committee, was the most involved in January 6th, Jim Jordan, as Speaker of the House, to cripple our government. They're right now, Republicans in the Senate are blocking confirmation of our diplomats, including our ambassador to Israel, promotions for our military, and appointees to the Departments of Energy, State, Veterans Affairs, and Justice. Republicans in the House are refusing to move forward appropriations legislation because they want to shut the government down on November 17th. Republicans in red states are purging city-dwelling voters from the voting rolls by the millions. Republicans on the Supreme Court have stripped away protections against bribery. Republicans are even telling the media outrageous lies, some so bad that even Fox News hosts can't stomach them. The next bottom line here, the next 15 months are going to determine whether going forward, America is going to look more like red states or like Russia, or are we going to look more like blue states, like California, like Massachusetts? And, it's up to you and me ultimately. I realize, the billionaires are going to be pouring a ton of money into this election, but ultimately, this may be our last opportunity 15 months from now to vote.